Sometimes there are media, what I call focus, right? You have a focus aspect on the media. And the focus right now is gasoline, gasoline prices, what happens, all these different areas. And what I wanted to go over today was the idea of gasoline and light versus heavy crude, which is what I've heard about. And I wanted to show you some of the research, and I wanted to show you some websites where you can gain some some perspective on gasoline and refineries, heavy versus light crude, those types of things. Today on the Data Show. Hi, everybody. My name is Chris Greco. I'm your host here for the Data Show for the next few minutes. I was originally going to do a study scrutiny on some areas that some studies that have been going on. And all of a sudden, I get inundated this week with gasoline prices. I mean, as we have been inundated week after week after week with gasoline prices. And it struck me as being interesting because I've heard a lot of different stories. I've heard the reason we're paying more is because we're on a world market. And therefore, like gold, everything is set at a price. If gold is $4,000 an ounce, it's $4,000 an ounce, whether you buy it in Japan, whether you buy it in Europe, whether you buy it, in India, wherever you buy it, that's where it's going to be. Same with petroleum. So I thought, well, it might be worthwhile to do just a little bit of data research and figure out exactly what we're doing. So what I did was I went to a place called EIA.gov, and it's the energy. Oh, well, we'll go on. We'll go into that in a second. But basically, it's you can even take a look at it. It's EIA.gov, and you can go to it and you can figure out exactly what's going on there. So that is where we're going to go, and that's where we're going to get our data for today. So this is the first place I went, and you can see here it's EIA.gov. In fact, what I can do is I can go ahead and give this to you here. So it's in a banner, so you can have it. And it's a long banner. Sorry about that. A long banner. But if you go to it, you'll be able to see some of the data. Well, you'll be able to see all the data that I'm about to show you. So that'll be something that'll be able to make that work. So what I went to first was I went to International Energy Outlook. And this was very, very interesting because, 2023, but it says it all the way from 2020 all the way to 2050, which was good. Now, what I wanted to point out and focus on was the chart itself, because I think a lot of people sit back and take a look at a chart and take it as being the truth, but it's not necessarily the truth. And here's why. It's a truth. And the reason is because there's a lot of things you can do here. It's actually a really good chart. You can point to it and it'll show you different energies. Now, what you can do is also, I have a lot of different countries here. So you can pick whatever country you want and it'll show you the energy used for that area. Now, what I did was I set this index to start as percent. So at this point in 2020, we would be at 0%. 0%. So what does this does? What does this do? Basically, what this does is this normalizes the chart. A lot of people don't understand what normalization means. So let me give you something as an example. You start at 0 to reset. If you reboot, if you do anything with a computer, what you're doing is you're setting everything to 0 again. You're rebooting. You're turning it off, turning it back off, turning it back on. It's a reset. What happens is that this basically makes everything 0, even though it's not. So if I put none here, you'll see, look at the difference in this area, because it starts really year 2020. and we're doing 92.4 quad BLU. I don't know if that's BLU. I think maybe British something units. BTUs, British thermal units. BLU. Well, you know something. Let's look it up together. Let's find out what that is. So energy BLU. We'll just see what that says. Blue energy, blue energy, blue energy. Well, it's blue energy drink. Isn't that funny? Wow. Okay. Let's see. Thermal BLU. Maybe BL2. Blu-ray, 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 Blu-ray. Oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. Okay, so let's see what this says here. This says quad BTU. I'm sorry. So it is British thermal units. So what is a British thermal unit? BTU, British thermal unit. And we'll do this together. So British thermal unit, U.S. Energy Information. Good. So this is the EIA. What is a British thermal unit? Measures the heat contents of fuels or energy sources. 1 BTU is the amount of heat needed to raise the temperature of 1 pound of water by 1 degrees Fahrenheit. Single BTU is very small in terms of the amount of energy single household or entire country uses. So there's your 1 BTU. Okay. So that's what we have here. And they're saying quad BTU. I think so. So if that's quad BTU, let's find out what quad BTU is. Quad BTU. Might be something different. So let's see. Quad BTU. Here it is. Quads to BTU calculate. Quad is a unit of energy equivalent to 1015 BTU or 1055 times 1000. So a short scale quadrillion. Wow. 1015 BTU. Quad is a unit of energy. So that's what it is. Very interesting. All right. So then you have a convert quad to BTU. So you have those things. But this is what they're saying here. And this is what we're talking about is what we have. So do you notice here? Very straight line. It's a very straight line area. It hardly moves at all. Because, I mean, we're talking here between 92.4 and 105.1 quad BTU. So it moves a little bit above and a little bit below 100. That's it. But if we take it and start at percent, look what happens. That looks immense, doesn't it? Look at that. But in truth be told, it's only to 15%. It's only 15%. It's not even to 25%, not even to a quarter of that. So 15%, what happens if you index the start as a value? In other words, you index the start. Look what happens again. Oh, it should be about the same. Yeah, it is about the same. And that's because the value in percent is there. So, I mean, so that's what we're talking about when we talk about a chart, right? And that chart is very revealing because if you presented this chart, it would make it seem like, oh my God, look at the amount that the United States is going to use in energy. But if you present it like this, all of a sudden it's like, well, we're not that far off. We're not that far off. We're almost a straight line. But look at it here. Here it looks like, oh my gosh, time to panic. What about here? Gosh, oh my, look how much more we're using. But then we go back. It's like, okay, we're good. And that's where charts can be deceptive. They don't mean to be deceptive. I mean, it's not like charts are out there to be deceptive, but that's really what goes on there. So you have to be really careful about what you do. But this is a great, I mean, look at the amount of data you can use here. I mean, this is wild. Lots and lots of data. World, 830 of these things. We do 103, right? I mean, we're at 92.4. The world is 593. So look at the biggest countries that are using energy. It'd be United States, Western Europe, China. Okay, look at China, 158.9, and look at United States, 92.4. So what are the populations? Population. China and India kind of tied for first, but right now India is first, China second, and the United States is third. So let's take a look at India. So what's India quad BTU? 35.3. So India is using 1/5 of China and about 1/3 of the United States. You see how, I mean, really, really interesting aspects about this whole thing. I mean, I mean, you can take a look at this. Asia Pacific is 271, but that's only because, I mean, America is 147. Asia Pacific is 271 only because China is using 158 of that, and they don't go down. Boom, 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 boom. They go all the way to. If you go all the way here, they go to China, goes to 195.4. Their increase is only 0.4%. The growth, 0.4%. So what's United States? United States is 0.2%. But look at some of these other ones. Mexico, 1.1, 1.1, 2.2. India, 3.9, because they're going to go up to 110. And we're going to be at 105. So if you take a look at the United States and at India, we are sitting here in the United States using 105 in 2050. In China, or in China, they're using 110. I'm sorry, wait a minute. No, in China, they use 195, and India is going to use 110. So they're going to use 5 quad BTUs more than us the year of 2050. Are they ever going to be like that? So let's see if I can actually compare these two. Can I compare these two? Yes, I can. All right, so let's see if I can actually compare them. So this is India, and this is the United States. Look at India. Look at this. Look at the growth on that, and look what's happening here. Now, why? Why is India going to use more energy? One is because India is developing coal. In order, they are taking up a ton of coal, and because they have coal, and because they need oil, they're going to put oil and coal together, and they are literally going to produce steel. So they are going to use a lot of energy, and it's going to be carbon positive energy. So it's going to be interesting how that all works. If you take a look at the percent, you'll see. Look at the difference. Here's the United States in blue. Look at our percent. Barely moving because it's 0 to 50 to 100. But look at India. Look at India. It's going to shoot up there to 200%, almost over 200%. Stars of value, it's going to be the same thing. So you can see that the chart is very, 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 very helpful if is a comparison, and if the comparison is set to 0. If you compare it to 0, it seems to have a better or an equivalent unit. So in this case, it's quad BTUs, which is equivalent unit. Works. It works as long as definitions are there, quad BTU and the rest of that. So that's very, very important. So that's what I wanted to show here. Then I wanted to show this here. Monthly U.S. lower 48 states crude oil production by density. So here's what happens. Light oil, light crude has a lower density, or lower density. So basically, if it's more dense, right? It's more dense. You have less dense here, more dense here. So here's our crude oil production. We produce a lot of light oil. In other words, we manufacture light oil. And I thought, okay, light versus heavy, interesting. And you give this is also EIA.gov. And you can, I'll put the banner up here again. You can take a look at it, and you can, we'll put it up here for a couple of seconds. So this is a chart that shows the monthly U.S. lower 48 states crude oil production. There it is, right? Lots of light, not so much heavy. So what do we have to do? We have to import the heavy. We import the heavy, we pay the world cost. We pay the cost that the world pays for crude oil. That's why our gas is more, not a ton more, but more, certainly more than Europe or anybody else, because Europe doesn't produce any oil, right? So you take a look at this, 11 million barrels a day, up from an average of 10.8 million barrels a day in 2021. This is the first half of 2022, right? Annual U.S. crude oil supply plus imports by API gravity. So this is higher. Remember, lighter, heavier, right? So imports, we don't import that much. U.S. production, we're doing fine. Then all of a sudden we have 30 and lower. Look at this. This is our production. This is our imports, right? So we're importing a ton of this stuff. And then I thought, and it says right here, although large quantities of crude oil are produced in the United States, it still imports crude oil to meet domestic refining needs, which means our refineries are set up to refine heavy crude. Crude oils are in qualities. Sweet crude oils have relatively low sulfur content. Sour crude oils have relatively high sulfur content. The U.S. refining complex is advanced, capable of refining heavier, more sour crude oils, which generally cost less than lighter, sweeter grades of crude oil. So it struck me as interesting. I couldn't figure out if we produce up here, if we produce light oil, then why are we refining heavier oil and bringing heavier oil in when light is sweeter oil, right? So I couldn't figure that out, and so I brought some oil and petroleum products. So it says refineries use more than just crude oil. And in addition to crude oil, refineries and blending facilities add other oils and liquids during processing to produce the finished products that are sold to consumers. The other oils are liquids that condense in natural gas wells, natural gas plant fluids, liquefied gases. Refining output is larger than input. The total volume of products refineries produce is greater than the volume of crude oil that refineries process, because most of the products they make have a lower density than the crude oil they process. This increases is called processing gain. So you sit back and you say, okay. So if you take 42-gallon barrel, these are the things that are produced from that. Finished motor gasoline, it's only half of that. Half of that 42-gallon barrel of oil, half of that is gasoline. The rest is fuel oil, kerosene, still gas, whatever that is, hydrocarbon gas liquids, lubricants, kerosene, waxes, all that. So a lot of these things, have a lot of different areas. And that's where you have to, understand what's light, what's heavy, what do each of them mean, what do each of them go, all these different aspects. And this is what is going. Now, this is kind of EIA. And they talk about the refining process. They talk about the basics. And this is what is done by refining. So, or there's a refinery in Mississippi. So I mean, there's a lot of things where oil is produced. This is inputs and outputs, a refining process. All these different things have to do with understanding they produce lighter crude oil, import heavier crude oil. This is the thing that you have to understand. This was done 2022. So that is what we're talking. We have light crude oil, sweet crude oil, and we import heavier crude oil because that's what we need to process to be able to run our cars and, to do gasoline and kerosene and all those things. Interesting, right? Because light crude oil, sweet, it's got a lot of, it has less hydrocarbons, has less different things about it, but we produce and we've been made to refine heavy crude oil. Now, I take a look at that and it's easy to say, well, why don't we just change from heavy to light? and just refine light. And I think the cost of refining light is going to be more than the cost that it would take to just keep refining heavy. And I think there's a cost benefit analysis there, you know, and you can even say that is the cost of refining light crude more than refining heavy crude. Now, if you take a look at that, and see that finding catalysts, yeah, don't care. So there's a lot of things. Finding catalyst portfolio. Oh, cost for finding light crude more than finding cost. Finding complex advanced, finding and capable of finding heavier, more sour oils, which generally cost less than lighter, sweeter grades of crude oil. So here's what I'm thinking. And this is from a data perspective, right? I see that more and more people are going to use oil, right? Because we see there's a rise in that. But you need heavier oil to be able to do that. And it costs less than the lighter, sweeter grades of crude oil. If we try to sell that lighter crude oil on the open market, it's going to cost more. Now, it's more profit for U.S. companies, but people aren't going to buy that if they can buy the heavier crude, which is less, and it meets their purposes. Let me give you an example, and this is an example when we talk about coal. There's two types of coal. Well, there's many types of coal, but main two types: anthracite and bituminous. Bituminous coal gives off a ton of sulfur. They had to put scrubbers and everything else in there because bituminous coal puts out a ton of sulfur and a ton of pollutants into the air. I was raised in Pittsburgh. We used to see it all the time. Anthracite is very hot. It's a very hard coal. Bituminous soft. Anthracite is hard coal. And the hard coal doesn't give off as much hydrocarbons, much sulfur, all those things. But one, it's hard to mine, and two, it's rare. It's relatively rare. A lot of it was in Pennsylvania, West Virginia. So that's where it was kind of like, let's stop mining coal, period, and that's where just it stopped completely. But that's the difference. So heavy, light oil, it makes sense that there would be different grades of oil when we talk about that. So what did we cover today? Once we covered EIA.gov, lots of data on that. How much are we going to be using in the next 30 years, which is energy producing, and then heavy versus light, and the fact that our refineries are made for heavy, but we produce a lot of light. So, and heavy costs less than light. If you try to sell something that's more expensive, people are going to take the stuff that's cheaper. So that's why we refine a lot of heavy, because that's cheaper than buying light. We produce light, but it must be hard to sell because, of course, it's more expensive, and people are going to buy heavy instead of light. So they're going to buy it from OPEC and all the other oil-producing countries. So that's just, and again, that's all. That's all conclusions that were from the data itself and from some of the research. And that's really all I have for today. But the idea behind it is, do some more research on heavy and light, figure it out for yourself from the standpoint of what you think. I've tried to define it here, but it's not an easy concept to define. And then I will see you all in June or maybe July sometime with the next issue, with the next data show. But understand a couple of things. First of all, data does not answer questions as much as it presents trends. And those trends then go into other information. The other information then goes into what you're trying to do to bring up a conclusion. So that is what I'm trying to show here. And, get started with EIA.gov and take a look at that. Lots of good data there. Until next time, this is Chris Greco signing off for the Data Show. And have a great May, and give your best memories to those individuals on Memorial Day. And June the 6th is the anniversary of D-Day. So those two things coming up within the next few weeks. Take care. Stay healthy, and remember always check the data.